What's going on, everybody? And what's going on, folks? My name is David, and I'm your legendary host of this legendary podcast, the Deconstructing Topic Podcast. And you know what? Today is going to be real quick in terms of what I'm going to talk about. And that's very, very easy in this episode. Because you know what? Go, New York, go! Woo! I got to post the song right there because you already know those strikes, they be crazy out there. But we are talking about the New York Knicks, my New York Knicks, everybody's favorite basketball team, the New York Knicks. Let's make it happen. And shout out to the boys out there who made it to the NBA Finals since 1999. And we're going to be talking about a little bit of it all. And you know, why not? Why not I've been talking about my life through this podcast and giving my insights and so on and so forth. And I'm like, you know what? When people ask me, how long I've been a Knicks fan, you know what? Listen to this podcast. Hit the like, hit the sub, talk to me, hit the comment. Since when you been a Knicks fan? Talk to me about being a Knicks fan. Let's go. Let me tell you something. I'm still kind of, how can I say, excited, that my Knicks made it to the NBA Finals, and not just making it to the NBA Final, but just obliterating the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Atlanta Hawks. And just every game that we clinched to make it to the next round, we just blowing everybody out by 50, 40, almost 30, 27 points, or whatever the case might be. But we talking about New York. Let's go, the New York Knicks. And once again, I'm definitely excited. Hey, listen, whoever wins out of the Spurs, OKC, it don't matter. Whoever it is, I think they might go to Game 7. By the time that I'm doing this recording, it's a 3-2 OKC Thunders, who are the defending champions and the best team in the NBA based on record. But right now, who's the hottest? Who playing like crazy? It's my New York Knicks. Let's get it. Shout out to Jalen Brunson, Cat, and all those Bridges, Hart. You already know, OG. Shaman. Let's go. But you know what? I'm so excited. But you know what? I'm going to burst some people's bubble because we are doing a little introduction, if you will, of my life and how I became a Knicks fan. And, I'm once, not being born here in the United States, but raised in the United States. And one of the 4 popular sports, or 4 main sport, me growing up would have been football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. And my favorite teams in baseball, you already know, my beloved New York Yankees. Let's go. Who's doing their thing? Back on track. Let's go, Yankees. We got the hockey, the New York Rangers. The other tenant in Madison Square Garden. And sadly, the last team in Madison Square Garden. Hey, I take it back. Perhaps maybe there was another little amateur league, but I don't know. But between the Knicks and the Rangers being the last team in Madison Square Garden to win the championship, which is the Stanley Cup back in 1994. You got, in terms of football, my New York Giants. Let's go. And then we got the New York Knicks and basketball. And out of all these 4 teams, I love them all. But the New York Knicks have been the most difficult, and I'll be, admit it. It has been a little bit hard, And me watching basketball since the 1990, and I'm just going to bring up some old school because my recollection, that's why you got to hit the like. Feel free to comment. Let me know. Let me know when you started watching the Knicks. Who was in that team? I started watching the Knicks in 1990. Now, originally, I was not a Knicks fan. People are going to be like, what? Wait, what? They just say that I kind of rooted for the Bulls a little bit. And just because the reason is that at that time, most people did not have cable. So when there was a televised game on NBC, you already, NBA on NBC, Bob Costas and them, you had the Chicago Bulls for the most part. The Bulls was all over regular TV in a way, especially these primetime games, Christmas game, whatever game that's on TV, whether it's the NBA, NBA on NBC, basically. And then when cable, came up with the ESPN, the TNT, and whatever the case, you already know the rest is history. But I remember one day, it was the Knicks, the playoffs. Shout out if you remember this, 1990-91 playoff. As a matter of fact, this was the Bulls' first year where they actually destroyed my Knicks and then made it to the NBA Finals and beat the Lakers. Let me just go to that roster because we had Patrick Ewing. Yeah, we're going to take you to memory lane Ooh, Kiki Vandeweghe. I remember the dude. Yeah, he took a lot of shots. I remember that dude. Gerard Wilkins, or Gerald Wilkins, brother of Dominique. For those who are there, Maurice Cheeks, Trent Tucker, the three-pointer, specialist. Charles Oakley, the Oak Man, Kenny Walker, and John Starks and Mark Jackson. John Starks, he was doing the bench thing. And again, John Stark was not the John Stark that he became back in the mid-90s. And Mark Jackson, coming off. Mark Jackson, you know what? It's interesting because Mark Jackson, and for the New York Knicks, and we could probably say this until Brunson came in. For some reason, even the days of Patrick Ewing in the 90s, we always felt that we needed a point guard. Because for some reason, that's just the thing there. It's kind of like the Chicago Bears in a sense that they always trying to find this elite quarterback or whatever to take them to the promised land, but they always fall short. It's kind of similar to the New York Knicks. And Mark Jackson was an interesting, great player. And look, the Pacers, say less. I mean, it's one of those things. Mark Jackson, just for some reason, just did not fit the team or whatever the case might be. And then obviously as he became older, playing with the Pacers, he became a little bit more bulkier, and then his game was a little bit different. Actually, as a point guard, was kind of like posting up other point guards. So his style was just different. For some reason, he just didn't fit. And I always have said, for some reason, the Knicks always have lack of, for some reason, this point guard that they need. I don't know. If it's just me, let me know. But I always got this sentiment, and people always kind of have said, in the 90s, if Patrick Ewing had a point guard or another shooting presence there, perhaps that would take the load off him. But it's neither here or there. But boy, oh boy, we got destroyed. We got swept 3-0. Matter of fact, I think the first game was like almost like by 40 something points. And then the second game were competitive games, but just, the Bulls were just the Bulls. The Bulls was on a mission, basically. And it's one of those things where, Michael Jordan, you already know. And then that became a staple of throughout the playoffs, us, the New York Knicks, getting the hump over the Chicago Bulls. And it happened in 1993. Where we was winning 2 games to zip. You got John Stark the dunk, but the Bulls were the Bulls. Charles Smith game, for those people out there who remember. But there's always that 1994 in the finals New York Knicks team, who consists of Patrick Ewing. You already know he's the star, he's the guy, he's the go-to, he's the center. John Stark's a reliable shooter, doing his thing. Derek Harper came in to play, the point guard. Shout out to Derek Harper. And Derek Harper kind of have a game a little bit similar to Mark Jackson, but obviously Derek, being a veteran, came in. Charles Oakley, you already know. Now we came with Charles Smith. Now Charles Smith is interesting. For those remember out there, the 1994 team with Charles Smith. Charles Smith was in the Clippers, if I'm not mistaken. Charles Smith was scoring a lot with the Clippers. And this is not the first time we hear this. When it comes to the Clippers, for some reason, that team was somewhat of a offensive team. If I'm not mistaken, there's a player, Ron Harper, who was averaging like 20 points per game. Then he went to the Bulls a couple of years later on, and, he was averaging like 14, 15. And it's not that he was not the same player, but it's just that for some reason, the game that they play in L.A., the Clippers, that is, was different than, let's say, somewhere in the East Coast with the Knicks and the Bulls. So, picking up Smith, you would think, okay, and he did score, but, he was just, Charles Smith. I don't even know how to describe him. Anthony Mason, come on, man. Big left hand, big dude. Anthony Mason, it's what some people consider a goon, if you will. Bring up the big boy, start shoveling. He was a big man. But the fact that he had handles, and he was kind of like those point forward, you already know, moving the ball. Great player. Greg Anthony, coming from UNLVs. Greg Anthony was another player. And listen, Greg Anthony, when it comes to the Knicks, I mean, he had a productive thing, but again, the expectation was so high in this UNLV team that there were Larry Johnson, Stacey Augmon, and them boys. So Greg Anthony, I don't want to say he did not live up to the expectation, but again, if Patrick Ewing, your center, is the go-to guy, then you got to keep that in mind. That's the situation that, the Knicks dealt with. The good thing, Patrick is great, but sometimes there's moving pieces that you need in regards to a guy like Patrick Ewing. Now, in today's NBA, it's a little bit different. But you can have, these Greg Anthony's of the world. And Patrick Ewing don't necessarily have to be the go-to. Hey, just put up 15 points and 15 rebounds. Everybody's taking a shot. But you see, back then it was a little bit different. Back then it was like, okay, give me 25 points, and give me 10 rebounds or something to that effect. So, Hubert Davis, you already know, the three-point specialist from North Carolina. Herb Williams and Anthony Bonner. Herb Williams, wow. So we had like a little mix of veterans, and a lot of these plays that we had, they were basically in their peak. So think about that. And, obviously John Starks, different beats there going on. But the fact that the Knicks were in their prime, and this is what 1994 for us, Knicks fan, who we had 3-2 lead going to Houston, the rest is history. Now, Houston, what a great team. I'm not going to mention the other stuff. I mean, if you're a Knicks fan, you already know. There's that saying, if you know what happened over there. Just, I'm not even going to try to bring it up, please. I'm just sorry. I apologize if I try to, but, it just, but we're here. It is 2026, and just to give you my love in regards to the Knicks. 1999, Marcus Camby, Ewing, Latrell Sprewell, that was that year. That was that short year. I believe that there was that strike. And we go against the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs, it's interesting because the Spurs is kind of like that team now with a big guy. There was that team back in 1999 with Tim Duncan and David Robinson and Sean Elliott and some of the other players. The Spurs became a different team. I mean, the 90s Spurs, the 2000 Spurs, the 2010 Spurs, and shout out to Craig Popovich. Great coach over there in San Antonio, but we fell short against San Antonio. And the fact that Patrick Ewing was already up there in age, and even though David Robinson was up there in age, the factor is Tim Duncan. We had no answer for Tim Duncan. And Marcus Camby, I remember when they played each other, I think Marcus Camby in college. He was in UMass with Wake Forest, and I believe that Marcus can be a lanky, tall player, versus a more, Tim Duncan more chunky, but, Tim Duncan was a little less chunky back in college. So Marcus had a better, how can I say that? He had the best of him in regards to that situation. So after 1999, I just, I would love to kind of tell you what players I remember. Of course, Stephen Marbury, Jamal Crawford. There's a lot of players that came in and out, Eddie Curry. I mean, they just say that the Knicks, Isaiah Thomas became our coach. We went, the Knicks franchise, to say the least. And for those people out there that might not be aware, so the Knicks were owned at one point by, James Dolan and, the Cablevision people. I kind of forget what's the other name that they use. It's either Rainbow or another name. They had a business name. And they also, for old school heads out there, they also own the Wiz, which is an electronic company here in New York City, which no longer exists. And the theme song of the Wiz would be Nobody Beats the Wiz, Nobody Beats the Wiz. And because the connection between Cablevision, the Wiz and the Knicks being the same owner, same company, the fact that the Knicks started, in the mid-90s, is like, nobody beats the Knicks, nobody beats the Knicks. Oh, my goodness. Holla if you hear me. You got to hit the like 3 times. That's an old school, But then, we go to the, after 1999, again, we just go on this thing, and even all the way to 2015 and 16, as a Knicks fan, it's like, you start to think that Massacre Garden was just that. It was not for you to watch a basketball game. It's for you to just be like, I went to MSG, yeah, I'm going to watch the New York Knicks because that's their home court, but I'm actually going to go and watch, let's say if we play the Bucks, we're going to see Giannis Antetokounmpo. If we play the LA Lakers, we're going to see, Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean? And then we had the Jeremy Lin thing, and, prior to that, when Carmelo Anthony came to, we made that move. You start kind of saying, okay, perhaps there's something going on. Perhaps there's some waters changing. Then the whole Jeremy Lin situation, insanity, that was interesting. And sadly, things just didn't work out. Jeremy left, Melo is Melo, whatever the other players did, they did. But the rare times that we made the playoff, we always kind of like struggle. We'll come across this, we'll come across that, and then in the last 5 years, it's been different. In the last 5 years, the Knicks, hey, listen, they be pumping the gas. And I'm going to say is this, because now we are talking about the 2026 Knicks. Just like everybody and many people out there, when we offered Jalen Brunson that amount of money, the contract, a 4 or 5 year, 100 mil, I said, that's crazy. That's too much. And keep in mind, Jalen Brunson, he's a winner. In Villanova, they did a championship or two, if I'm not mistaken. That's where Bridges and Hart, all those. We got the New York Villanova Cats. But I was one of those people. I'm like, hell no, Brunson, nah, that's too much. Then people start making these things. At the game where he was in Dallas, where Luka got hurt, he took over and he did what he did. And a lot of people was like, wait a minute. So you telling me that this cat right here can ball out and give you 25 easy, 30, 35? But if she played with Luka, he's going to get less because Luka demands the ball. Hey, listen, Luka Doncic now playing with the LA Lakers when he was the Cavaliers. Hey, listen, he was the centerpiece. And the fact that Jalen Brunson was a second-round pick, it's like, yeah. And the Knicks took a gamble. And in the first year, there was, little things going here and there. And I'm like, okay, all right. But as every year passed, Jalen Brunson just starts to ball out, ball out, ball out. And obviously, this is his team. There's no if, and, or buts about it. This is Jalen Brunson's team. And we have a lot of moving parts. We had a lot of great players, and we understand. And the fact is this. Everybody's getting love. It ain't like we scoring like 100 points and Jalen scored him 40. No, everybody's balling out, even in the last game against Cleveland. Brunson did not have a great game. He didn't have that much points, but the ball spread. And that's what's so different about this roster. And that's why I would say, yes, today's NBA is much different than that NBA. Me growing up in the 90s, yes. But could it have been anybody extra that could have probably taken some of the burden on Ewing and perhaps moved the ball? Absolutely. Absolutely. Could have. Michael Jordan, with all due respect to Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time. There are people that say, hey, listen, and there's many people, that Scottie Pippen was that instrument that he needed. That if without Scottie Pippen, he'll probably win a couple, but he probably would have lost some. But you get the gist there. And Scottie Pippen was not trying to take away points away from Jordan. Jordan is Jordan. Just the fact that Ewing was Ewing. It's just that you bring something intangible, a little bit different. The thing is, with the Knicks, were more banking on the fact that, we had some defensive bodies there. You know what I mean? It's 2026 and I'm loving this team. Was I one of those people when we was down to 2-1? Was I a little bit disappointed and felt like, okay, we could come back? I said all it takes is one, and once we tied up the series, the rest was history. We go on a 11-game winning streak. And the fact that you got players that want to play, and that's another thing growing up as a Knicks fan. When Miami started doing this, thing with the LeBron, South Beach type of thing, Boston, the Lakers over there doing Lakers things. It's like people say, look, listen, New York City is not the Mecca anymore. It's not where I want to be. It's not where I want to boy. It's not what makes you big. It's South Beach. You got LA land, La La Land over there in Lakers. Hey, you got, you can make a little bit move to ATL, Dallas, hey, Texas, you know what I mean? Boston is Boston. You already know history. People sometimes like to be part of history to say, oh, I'm playing for Boston Celtics, the team with the most championship in the NBA. Let me play with Boston because I could be part of that history and make my own history in that organization. The New York Knicks, New York City. Yeah. They just, people were just not wanting to go to New York. And and obviously we made some bad moves that we didn't just have no money to make any moves. So, yeah, we was in the LeBron sweepstakes, but LeBron already made up his mind. But we here in 2026. Game 1, June 3rd. I'm excited. You excited? You should be excited. But we definitely making it happen. Because it is what it is in here. And I'm excited because I'm a big New York Knicks fan and I've been waiting for a while. I've been to a couple of Knicks games. I think the times that I've been to the Knicks game, they lost. Jeez. Let me not even go there. But that's what's going on with that situation. But hit the like button. Feel free to comment. Let me know what's your favorite Knicks player. Look, I forgot to mention my New York favorite player, obviously, is Patrick Ewing. And you already know I got love for John Stark and Latrell, Sprewell. You know what I mean? So that's my peoples. Before me, there was the Bernard Kings of the world and so on and so forth. So, that was a long time ago. Shout out to the 73 Knicks, the last team that won a championship with Clyde Frazier. Matter of fact, I want to talk about Clyde Frazier because I did listen to a lot of Knicks game on WFAN New York, and Clyde, Al Albert. When you got cable, you had Al Trogwick talking there, Knicks. Dave DeBusschere was in that 73 team. Phil Jackson. Yeah, that Phil Jackson. The one that won championships with the Lakers in Chicago. Yes, that Phil Jackson. Bill Bradley. La Bella Monroe. And those are the legends that I grew up hearing in Madison Square Garden. Those are the legends that are most likely in the rafters in Madison Square Garden. Let's make it happen. You already know. So much memories. Down go memory lane. Go New York, go New York, go. Let's get it. All right, holla at your boy. I'm over there on all platforms. Spotify, Apple, and you already know T-Juice TV. All the information will be in my description. Anyways, let's make it happen. I'm out. Peace.